the Bills start off slow. And before I kind of go really into that, I think what you can learn from a loss is way more valuable than what you can learn from a victory. And for me personally, why I think that's true is because when you win, right, you're not as self critical of what was going on during the game. And I feel like Sean McDermott has a pretty good handle on how to fix that and not to be ignorant of the fact, like, there were some wasted opportunities out there. We got to do stuff better. Well, I'm going to try my best impersonation here to be Sean McDermott and point out the areas like, hey, we could be better. And I'm not trying to be a party pooper. I'm always a half glass full kind of person. So don't take me for a half glass empty kind of guy. Anyways, like I said, the Bills start off slow. And, I'm looking at the box scores right here presented by ESPN. In the first quarter, they didn't put any points on the board. Okay. The second quarter, you're like, okay, things started to turn up. 2 touchdowns and a field goal. They get a field goal right in the half. And then right into the third, they get the ball, move the chains once, and then they punt the football back to the Panthers. And eventually later in that quarter, they score another touchdown. But what I did notice was like, wow, the Bills had a real good chance right there to carry that momentum over from the second into the third, but they kind of didn't do that. And I understand that they ended up scoring a touchdown later in the third anyway, so I guess it kind of worked out. But the Bills had to like regain that momentum that they were building in the second half, or in the second quarter rather. So, like I said, I personally think the Bills have a problem, getting things off, starting off hot. And you look at that Tampa Bay game last week, and I still think there's no better game to really represent what the 2021 Buffalo Bills were than watching that Buccaneers game. First half, nothing. And then second half, they just put it together, and they're just building crazy momentum, great special teams, offense, defensive, efforts, complementary football, and we all know they fell short at the end of the day, and I'm not going to get into that game because it still infuriates me a week later. But, the Bills started off slow there too, and this game against an inferior opponent, and that's no shade going against the Panthers, but, they're not what we think they are. This is not the year for them. You would imagine that they would have built off that momentum from the Bucs game and just kind of come out guns blazing and just, stay on top and keep it going. Well, it wasn't really that, at least from what I was looking at. It just seemed like there were a lot of opportunities left out on the field, and I'm not going to lie, what was it? Yeah, when the Panthers scored their first touchdown in the second quarter, and then they were able to convert that 2-point conversion, I thought to myself, like, oh boy, here we go. How are the Bills going to respond? And we ultimately know that they ended up putting up, what was it, 19 more points in them in that quarter. So, or not 19, 9. So I'm okay with what happened. But that's not to take away from the fact that I don't really think the Bills should have been there in the first place. They really shouldn't have. I think that this team needs to go back to the drawing board and figure out, like, okay, well, we know how to turn on the second quarter, but what happened in the first? It's almost like they're in the first quarter. It feels like, all right, we have this initial game plan. Let's go out there. And then, when it doesn't work, they're just feeling out the other team for a little bit, and then they turn on the Jets. Now, some of you are going to say, hey, that means they're adjusting, and I would agree. They are adjusting, but could you do it a little faster? And I understand I'm not a professional NFL coach or quarterback or whatever, but it just seems like, they just kind of get off the blocks a little slow, and I'm sure that's a common problem across all other 31 NFL teams in the league. But that was just one area that I've noticed personally.